I want to know. You're at the level of success I want to reach. Do you still have days where you wonder if it's all worth it? He laughed out loud. Dude, my family hears me talk about this all the time. Then his face changed. He immediately switched to serious Tim mode. If you've ever watched his videos, you know that he has this very distinct, serious Tim face. This was that face. He looked at me dead in the eye and said, Ryan, here's what I've discovered. There are plenty of things not worth pursuing, but that doesn't mean it isn't worth doing. You see, even if the thing isn't worth it, the pursuit is. That sums up entrepreneurship for me. It's not about the money. It is about who you become through the pursuit that ultimately makes all of this worth it. You can start this journey on the side, but as soon as you see liftoff, meaning your business is consistently getting sales, that's the time to buckle up and go all in. And it will happen faster than you realize. It's usually 4 to 6 months from the start of the business. That's when you are going to dive in headfirst and passionately work 12-hour days. That will be the norm, but it will be exciting as hell. If you're working a full-time job, that means that your nights and weekends will be full for the next year. Your pursuit starts with the decision to go all in. It starts with the decision to accept that it is a long journey and decide to do it anyway. You've likely heard the phrase, freedom isn't free. We use that phrase to honor the fallen heroes who fought for American freedom, as we should. However, we seem to forget that our own freedom isn't free. We have to work really hard for it. As an entrepreneur, you've chosen this life because you want freedom. And if you want a unique life, you will have to sacrifice for it. This journey is going to create challenges. You'll learn new things about yourself, more than you ever thought there was to learn. You're about to open Pandora's box. In fact, if you think you know yourself right now, check back in 6 months down the road and marvel at the layers in your soul that you've uncovered. Let's roll. Okay, here we go. I've given you the context you need to understand what you're getting yourself into, how to be successful at it, and how your life will change. I've shown you what the opportunity looks like and just how many chances you'll have to make a huge impact. I've shown you why what you're about to build is massively in demand and why people out there are relying on you to build a $1 million brand. Hopefully, I've raised your awareness and made you think hard about the beliefs and mindset you're bringing to the table and the work you need to do on yourself first to ensure this journey won't see you crash and burn. There's nothing left to do now but to show you the method. In the next several chapters, you'll learn the exact steps in the exact order that you need to follow to build a 7-figure business in 1 year. In each chapter, you'll see how the step looks in practice through real-world examples from myself, my students, and big brands that you'll recognize. Do not skip steps. Do not rush to get started before you finish reading. Read carefully and thoroughly, and if you have questions, seek out the capitalism.com community online. There's a whole legion of entrepreneurs, just like you, waiting to share their experiences and answer your questions. The relationships that you build during this process will likely become some of the most important relationships of your entire life. So reach out early and start getting together with your tribe. Most of all, enjoy this journey. I'm done trying to scare you away. This is going to be fun. Okay, so from here, we're going to dive into the specifics of the 12 months to 1 million model. But before we roll into chapter 3, something that some people have been doing is posting on social media or sending me a message via social media saying today is day 1. And this is day 1. What we're going to usher in now is the step-by-step plan behind the 12 months to 1 million model. And if you're willing, if you want to make this day 1, post it publicly on social media, tag the book, tag me, or shoot me a message. All right, let's dive into chapter 3. Chapter 3. Step 1, choose your customer. A $1 million business feels impossible to many. It's too big, too bold, and too out of reach. However, I've seen it happen hundreds of times. So I know it's completely possible for any entrepreneur with enough drive and commitment. Since most people don't have that, I am often accused of overselling the simplicity of it. That's why I refer to the first few months of your business as the grind. Until you have a product up and selling consistently, every single decision can feel like a mountain you have to climb. This is especially true at the very beginning. If you have no idea what you're going to sell or you are flat broke, it would be easy to ignore the idea that a 7-figure business is even possible for you. That was certainly the case with my friend Susie Batiz. Susie had been trying to become an entrepreneur her entire life. She'd started and ended multiple businesses in her youth, and then she went bankrupt twice. Her first bankruptcy, at age 20, was the result of a failed bridal salon. She went bankrupt a second time at 30, having tried and failed to launch a website that matched recruiters to job applicants based on corporate culture. Like all born entrepreneurs, though, she kept trying. But the next idea wouldn't hit her until she was in her mid-40s. It happened right under her nose when her husband stunk up the bathroom. Sometimes your own biggest problems are signs for very profitable solutions. It seemed too odd to work. What if there was a way to get rid of the lingering smells in a bathroom after going number 2? She started experimenting with fragrance oils, and she soon discovered that she could eliminate those odors when her magic potion was put in the toilet before you went poop. After a few improvements, she put her magical potion into a spray bottle, and the idea for Poopery, the before you go spray, was born. It was a good idea, and the product worked. But she had one problem. How do you market a product that no one has heard of before? Who's the target customer? After all, as every parent of a toddler who has read that book over and over knows, everyone poops. Susie got some quick sales by giving the product away to friends and asking for reviews. She gained some traction by word of mouth, and she had a small distribution network in boutique shops. Sales were initially extremely slow, and she feared yet another failure. However, that all changed when she identified her audience. Susie's target market wasn't men who stunk up the bathroom, although I'm sure she wished it were. It was women like her who were tired of embarrassing situations. That was the moment that Poopery took off. She filmed a video for the product that featured a prim, English-accented woman grinning into the camera like a sweet young Mary Poppins while sitting on a toilet, delivering the classic opening line, "You would not believe the motherload I just dropped." The video was funny. It was timely. It predominantly featured the product, and it absolutely exploded. Within days, Poopery had launched into the public consciousness, and it quickly became a sensation. Within a few years, Poopery had done more than $400 million in sales. That was enough to undo all of the fears of failures that had been brought on by multiple bankruptcies. Susie's success is one of the reasons why I brought her in to speak at the Capitalism Conference. Something special happens when you meet someone like Susie and discover she's just like you. All of a sudden, things you thought were impossible no longer seem so far away. Susie is a great example of an overnight success story that took 20 years. Today, she appears on Forbes lists and is a sought-after keynote speaker. What I admire most about her is her ability to inspire entrepreneurs to use their entrepreneurial power to do something that really matters. While Susie started with a product idea, her business crawled until she identified the person who would want to buy it. Once she centered her brand around the person, not the product, her business was off to the races. That's why when someone asks me, "What product should I sell?" or "How do I sell more product?" I always answer, decide who your customer is first. Focusing on people, not products. Back when I started out as an entrepreneur in 2006, no one taught me how to target a person. I discovered it the hard way, and it took me 10 years of failed entrepreneurship and overwork to finally understand that you can't really be happy unless you're doing something that benefits other people. To put it in business terms, You can't be successful until your work is valued by someone else, which is why starting with the person is so important. I learned to hand code websites in middle school using the shared computer in our family living room, on dial-up no less. Being so plugged into the internet from an early age meant I knew how to do other useful things like basic search engine marketing, internet advertising, and plugging into internet communities before social media was a thing. In college, I discovered that I could create websites for products, get them to rank in Google, and run Google AdWords to drive traffic to the site. This was before Facebook, before Kickstarter, or before Amazon turned into the behemoth that it is today. Even without any of those tools at my disposal, I did pretty well running this hustle from my dorm room. Other kids at school knew I had a successful internet business, and they thought I was hot shit. And honestly, I thought I was hot shit too. That all ended the moment I graduated. I had a way to make money, but no clear life path. As a result, my internet business, something that I had considered a side hustle, not a career, suddenly felt empty. Sure, I was making enough money to live on and even invest, but there was no direction to it. There was nowhere else to take the business and no way to grow it. On the one hand, I had solved the problem so many of my classmates were facing. How do I find a job? How do I make a living? I had money, but I had no purpose and I had no true skills to scale. It seems like an overreaction looking back on it now, but at the time, I felt like the world's biggest failure. All that time and money spent on college, and I was, what, a guy who sold random products online? An internet traffic manipulator with absolutely no idea what the hell I wanted to do with my life? Yes, I recognize that I had a serious case of first world problems, but I felt horribly lost. One day, I got an email about a meetup in Austin, Texas for hustlers like me. It was a 3-day event about internet traffic and advertising. I had nothing better to do, I had never been to Texas, and I was looking for direction in my life, so I decided to attend. While I was there, I met other entrepreneurs who were selling way more than me. But they were doing something different. They had real businesses, not just side hustles. On one of the breaks, I approached the leader of the summit and asked him for advice. What would you do if you were me? You know what I would do, he said. I would sell real stuff, real products. It was a huge aha moment for me, and the thought of going back to my apartment and staring at a computer screen all day, alone, sounded empty. I decided that I absolutely must get around people who were thinking bigger than me. With no relationship or responsibilities keeping me in one place, I sold almost everything I had, packed the few possessions I had left into the Kia Sportage I'd proudly purchased a few years earlier, and I drove to Austin, Texas. I rented an apartment sight unseen on a month-to-month basis, and 6 weeks into my life in Austin, I signed a year lease. I was there to stay. I met a sweet girl at the grocery store. I tried my hand at a bunch of different businesses, thinking that eventually I'd find something I wanted to stick with. A year into my new life in Austin, the greatest forcing function known to man dropped into my lap. I found out I was going to be a dad. It's incredible how fast a plus sign on a pregnancy test can spin you from lost and depressed to, I have to figure my life out now. Until this point, I had been bouncing around, trying my hand at any business opportunity that came my way in a search for purpose and deeper meaning. But the day the plus sign on a pregnancy test announced I'd soon have a daughter named Esther, I decided to put all my effort into one business model, this one. In a way, I was lucky. My hand was forced. I didn't have the choice not to go all in. Many of you reading this book are probably stuck at the point right before you get into the game, where you have to pick what you're going to sell. Perhaps, like me, you've dabbled in a dozen different business models and nothing has stuck. There's a common startup model called scratch your own itch, and it involves finding a problem you yourself have, solving that problem, and then allowing that solution to form a business. That's what inspired Susie to start Poopery. For years, I did the opposite of this. I sold whatever I could to make money. I did that because it was what everyone on the internet said to do to get rich. They weren't wrong. I made money, and I picked up some useful skills over those years. But there's a difference between making money and building a real business. You can sell things and make money, and your business will be purely transactional. You can follow a formula that produces profits, and it can work for a while. But once you start thinking about people, you start building a real business. If you create something that people actually want and you communicate to the person, you can create $1 million business in 1 year. That's how you become a real entrepreneur. You're going to eat it for 1 year. As you build to $1 million business in the next year, it'll help you to know the following up front. You're going to eat it for that entire year. In that first year, you're going to be working for very little money, not drawing a salary, and reinvesting every dollar until you have $1 million business at year's end. By then, you'll have a proven concept. Until then, you're figuring it out. Fortunately, I'm giving you the path to help figure it out within a year's time frame. Without a deadline in place, it's easy to get trapped in passive, it'll happen when it happens style thinking, and that won't serve you. This chapter is about the foundational decisions you need to make to go all in. What is your business? Who is your customer? Knowing the answers to these questions will get you to where you want to go faster, so you have to eat fewer shit sandwiches. This chapter is not just about going all in without a plan. It's about the thought process you'll need to go through to come up with the business you want to go all in on. You have two ways you can go with this. You can make decisions based on what will bring in short-term cash flow, or you can ask yourself, what is going to bring me the right customers, which will lead to a profitable and acquisition attractive business? There's a difference between looking to sell a product and acquiring a customer. Famed business author Peter Drucker said the two functions of business are to get customers and to keep customers. When you take a sale online, is that getting customers or keeping them? Most people would say it's the former, but it's a trick question. It's neither. If they buy on Amazon.com, then they are Amazon's customer. If they buy at Walmart, they are Walmart's customer. They're not your customer until they know who you are and they choose to come back to you. Who do you serve? I get dozens of messages every day from entrepreneurs, and the most common question I get from people new to the startup process is, what product should I sell? To figure out the answer to this question, you first need to understand you're building a brand, not selling products. Ask someone to define the word brand. They're likely to throw out a lot of descriptions, a cool name, a distinctive logo, a website, a great customer service touch they received. Those are all characteristics of a brand, but they're not the foundation of what a brand is. A brand isn't a logo. It's not a fancy website or a pack of sponsorships. A brand is trust. A brand is an expectation that the customer will be happy with their purchase. A brand is something built by creating a group of products that all serve the same person. My buddy Matt and I both went through serious personal transitions in our late 20s, and we did so at around the same time. As such, we had a shared mindset. We were starting to look toward more adult goals, such as health and longevity. A big component of our lives was a focus on our health. Me even more so because by then I had a daughter for whom I wanted to stay healthy. When it came time to build a brand, we didn't spend a long time wondering what kind of person we should serve with a line of products. We simply looked at our own lives and asked ourselves what we wanted. The answer was incredibly specific. We both wanted a pre-workout supplement that was both effective and free of all the crap that was in every other pre-workout supplement on the market. It's important to note that we didn't set out with the intention to start a business we were passionate about. Neither of us was passionate about pre-workout energy mixes in any way. All we were doing was developing a product that solved a pain point for us. We were scratching our own itch. While you don't have to build a brand to serve yourself, it's a good way to start. Knowing your own problems makes it easy to brainstorm solutions. If scratching your own itch doesn't turn you on, think about the other people you hang out with, your friends, your family, people at work. When you can think of a distinct group, a defined customer will start to reveal him or herself. For example, I know a lot of people who tried to make money selling spatulas on Amazon. A few of them did well, but most of them got crushed. Why? Because there are only so many ways to sell more spatulas. But if you know a lot of moms, and you want to honor the fact that busy moms still want to take an hour to cook for their children, then you can create a series of products for that person. One of the products might be a spatula. You start there. Then you can make a line of products that serve those moms. Suddenly, by starting with people instead of products, you have a brand. People are what make you money, not products. Think of it this way. A product is a one-time transaction, but a brand says something about a person. It tells a story that goes beyond the product. That kind of power leads people to buy multiple products and tell their friends about them. If you're just selling random products, you're robbing people of that story, a story about themselves. You're getting sales rather than getting customers, and sooner or later, your business will come under threat by the next person who can sell your product cheaper, faster, or slightly better. In the case of RX Bar, founders Peter Rahal and Jared Smith didn't start out with a burning desire to get into the already flooded protein bar market. They did CrossFit. They were friends at the gym, and they were dissatisfied with the protein bar options available to them. So, with an incredibly focused customer in mind, their friends at CrossFit, they created a protein bar with, quote, absolutely no BS, aimed directly at CrossFitters. Starting from their basement headquarters, making the bars themselves, they built the brand around their customer avatar, put the ingredients on the front of the packaging rather than in small print on the back, and they watched the product explode. 4 years later, they were acquired by Kellogg's for $600 million. It's important to define your customer around someone you know well. Don't pick a group of people you know nothing about unless you're prepared to do a lot of research on them. Make sure you can identify at least one pain point shared by the group and how you can serve that pain point with a collection of products. So, just because you've heard that Gen Z high school students have disposable income does not mean that you should target them as your customer. More than likely, you have no idea what that group wants or needs. Who are the people in your life? You know what they want and need. When you've identified your person and their pain point or a way to help them, it becomes much easier to identify 3 to 5 products that can kick off your new business. A word of warning. The absolute worst thing you can do is ask yourself, what products are super popular right now? For example, I can't tell you how many people I know chased fidget spinners or tried to sell diet supplements. Both trends exploded brightly, and sure, some people made some money, but they couldn't build a business because fidget spinners are a one-off product that doesn't serve a direct person, and diet fads change every year. Those people thought they had a business. What they actually had was a short-term cash flow machine. And most of those sellers are out of business now, and their flash-in-the-pan fad has fizzled out. If you only think about products based on what's hot right now, you'll eventually be threatened by a mass of competitors, and that's when profit margins get squeezed. Amazon can be the best place to get started selling products, but if you just look at what's selling on Amazon and try to sell that, you'll struggle to build a real business. Why? Well, if someone else sells the exact same product for $30, you have to sell yours for $28. Then the next person will price his or her product at $26. Now there's a race to the bottom on profit margin. When you start with people and create products for them, you become a price setter, not a price follower. That gives you better profit margins, and you get repeat customers rather than one-off sales. How to choose a winning product. If you have a person in mind, it's easy to discover what products he or she will buy. It used to be that to sell products, you had to develop them from scratch and do a lot of guessing. Companies had to spend thousands on research and development, and then spend millions marketing them via television, newspaper, magazine, and radio ads. After all of that, they would then hope and pray the customer would buy the products. There wasn't much else companies could do to affect results or drive growth. But today, you don't have to guess. You can know if a product will be successful from the very beginning. Sales channels like Amazon aren't just a way to get eyes on your product, they're also a research goldmine. Right at your fingertips, you have access to all the data you need about how much a product is selling and what customers are saying about it. Just search for the products your person buys. Look at what other companies are offering and pay attention to the reviews. This helps you zero in on exactly who your target market is and what their needs are. What don't they like about this face cream? What's wrong with that Instant Pot? What are their pain points? How can you improve upon what's already being offered? Another way is to look at Kickstarter and look at projects that raised millions of dollars. Go to Amazon and find the best-selling toilet paper. Watch Facebook ads and see what companies are being talked about. You can do this kind of research on any channel where you're thinking about selling, or simply by paying attention. Your job is to identify 3 to 5 products that your ideal person might buy. You don't need to worry about how to make it or how you will sell it. We'll fix that later. Just brainstorm what your person already buys and potential things he or she might like to buy. People who do yoga buy mats, towels, and blocks. That's 3 products. What else might they buy? Clothes, travel cases, or yoga pillows? Do people who do yoga buy other things too, like tea, meditation cushions, or essential oils? And do people who love yoga have different shopping habits than others? Do they buy organic or avoid synthetic skin creams? Write it all down. You don't need to worry about how you're going to do anything just yet. Just know that the internet has opened up opportunities for anyone who wants to create something from scratch. Anybody can do a Kickstarter campaign. Anybody can sell on Amazon. Any website can rank in Google. Anyone can run a Facebook ad. Anyone can post on Instagram and connect with any influencer. Your job is to find out where your customers are and drop your bait into that pond. Identify your gateway product. Once you've thought of a target person and are brainstorming at least 3 to 5 products that make up your brand, your next step is to start narrowing down the first product you'll sell. I call this the gateway product because it's the first in a series of products you'll eventually sell. I like to ask the question, what product will make my target customer want to buy more from me in the future? The first product that a yogi buys is a yoga mat. Then he or she buys everything else. So the first product I sold under my yoga business was a yoga mat. One of the first products that a new gym rat buys is a pre-workout. Then he or she buys everything else. Whether it's yoga mats or sports nutrition supplements, your gateway product represents the first obvious transaction for customers in that space. It addresses an obvious pain point and solves a simple problem. Once the ideal customer has the first product, they are likely to buy other products from the same brand. Even if your gateway product is the same as everyone else's, you're going to communicate in a way that's specific to your target market. Remember, you're not just selling a product, you're creating a message. You're taking something that's already there and crafting a story that's tailored to your customer. 2 different people can buy the exact same product for completely different reasons. One person might buy gloves to work in the garden, while another person might buy the exact same gloves for woodworking or going to the gym. Their preference would be to find a brand that speaks directly to them. Put simply, customers want to buy into brands that are going to serve them over the long term. You're not just selling workout gloves, you're selling to people who work out. This is non-negotiable. Dave Asprey from Bulletproof Coffee is my favorite example of someone who did this extremely well. Dave started as a humble blogger who wrote about productivity and health optimization. He built a reputation by defending the health benefits of coffee and encouraging readers to add fats and oils to their morning brew. A few years into his journey, he launched his own coffee, Bulletproof Coffee. That was his gateway product. Is his coffee special compared to other coffees? Some say so because it's made just for them. It's organic, certified mold-free, and twice the price. If Dave had simply wanted to start another coffee company, his second product would have been something like a dark roast or a new flavor. But Dave had his attention on something bigger, and he had 3 to 5 products outlined from the start. The second product he launched was a coconut-based MCT oil to go into your special mold-free coffee. Then he launched lactose-free, grass-fed ghee, also to add to your coffee in order to slow the absorption of caffeine, which gives you energy for several hours. Then it was protein bars, then whey protein, then upgraded MCT oil. Now Bulletproof is a biohacking company worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Dave had 3 to 5 products in mind from the get-go, all of them designed to serve his target market. That's very different than just selling coffee. Like energy bars, the coffee market is incredibly saturated, but it becomes far less saturated when you serve one of those target market's pain points. Dave's blog reads, quote, "Upgraded coffee is a proprietary bulletproof process to create coffee that is tested to be lower in mold toxins that inhibit human performance," end quote. Bulletproof focused on the pain preventing its customers from being high performers. As a result, everyone from CEOs to professional athletes to busy parents started buying from Bulletproof. What did these different groups have in common? Simple. They wanted higher performance. They were all Dave's target customer. People buy products that say something about themselves. Paying twice the price for Bulletproof coffee versus the competitors says that person is a high performer. On the other hand, drinking Black Rifle coffee, which we mentioned earlier, says you shoot guns or that you don't care about the opinions of other people. The product, coffee, is almost exactly the same, but the person is completely different. Compare that to one of my friends, James. James was a sportscaster on ESPN who left his job to become an entrepreneur. For several years, he wondered what type of business to start until he started listening to my podcast. One day, he was running on the beach while listening to me outline the path to $1 million. It's the same process you're discovering right now, by the way. He stopped mid-run. "I think I can do this," he said. James had previously struggled with sleeping at night until he discovered the source of his challenges. The light from being on his computer late at night was causing him to have insomnia. James found the solution in wearing blue blocker glasses, which filter blue light when he was on the computer before bedtime. They helped him sleep, but they were ugly. Pain point alert. So James developed a solution. He decided to make glasses with the same blue blocking function that didn't make the person look like a dork. He noticed that competitors were selling blue blocking glasses for about $8 a pair. Most people would balk at the low profit margins, but James created a brand that was specific for insomnia sufferers. That allowed him to charge a higher price and have a higher profit margin needed to create a great product. The product did extremely well. Customers loved it, and he built a brand that people were proud to show off. However, the company ran into a challenge. What does it sell next? Its next product was a different style of blue blocker glasses, and it bombed. What happened? Well, James had bought into the belief that he was selling glasses, not helping people with sleep problems. He had focused on the product, not the person. He needed to discover that he was a sleep company, not a glasses company. Once that was solved, it was easy to come up with 3 to 5 products that the company could sell. That changes everything. It's tempting to fall into the trap that your business sells products, because that's where the money comes from. But products are bought by people, and you must know who they are if you want to hit $1 million. The foundational questions. When my friends hear about my students' successes, they often reach out and ask to pick my brain. In most cases, they have a series of questions before they feel comfortable taking action. 2 of my friends, Carly and Carly, invited me over for lunch one day. They were setting out to be entrepreneurs, and they needed help clarifying their next steps. As soon as I was done chewing, they started firing questions at me. When it came down to it, every question came down to this: what business should we start? I went through a few options with them, and by dessert, they had a solid idea that they were really excited about. When I left, I knew they were on a good path with a clear direction. But the next time they invited me over for lunch, they wanted to update me on their progress. I couldn't wait to hear about how their business was going. As soon as I got there, however, question hour resumed. Ryan, what business should we really start? Here we were, back to square one. They didn't have a prototype or an audience or a proof of concept. They'd been stuck spinning in place because they were waiting to be told what to do. What I helped them discover was that there was no perfect product or right business to start. Instead, there's simply a set of decisions you need to make. Once you make these decisions, you'll have a good shot at success. But until you make these decisions, you'll be stuck in analysis mode forever. Again, you don't need to know how to do anything. We'll go into more detail on the process throughout the rest of this book. First, you must make decisions. It's okay to change your decisions later, but answering these questions will allow you to start to move down the path to your own $1 million business. Number 1, to whom are you going to sell? You start by identifying your person. It can be you or someone you know, but once you identify them, look at what group of people they belong to. Are they CrossFitters? Do they eat a paleo diet? Are they nurses? Are they Christians? If you don't know the answer, start with yourself. What groups do you identify with? Number 2, what do they already buy? Can you list at least 3 to 5 products that your group already buys? If you can't list at least 3 products, you're in the wrong market. At this point in the process, it's really tempting to make up a product idea from scratch, but I recommend that you start by identifying what your person already buys. Just start writing down what your person already buys on their journey to be a great mom, a great entrepreneur, or a great designer. Number 3, which product out of that suite of products do you want to focus on to either make a great version of it or a version that solves one of their problems? Looking at the list of products you come up with, ask yourself, how are these products not serving my group right now? Does one of them jump out as a potential gateway to the rest of the list? If you identify the first product that solves a pain point or serves as a gateway into other purchases, then you know exactly where to start. Number 4, what does your group think about similar products on the market? If you have a group of products you're thinking about focusing on, you can start to identify holes in the marketplace by listening to what other people are saying. Read customer reviews and look at internet forums. You can also start vetting your idea by posting about it online. My buddy Moise tried using Tom's natural deodorant and he hated it for a simple reason. It didn't work. He thought, I wonder if I can do this better. So he started asking questions on online forums, getting feedback from other natural yuppies like him. From the response, he knew there was interest. He did a $500 round of prototypes and sold out immediately. That was the beginning of Native Deodorant, which was later acquired by Procter & Gamble for $100 million. It took Moise only 18 months to go from $500 prototype to $1 million brand, and it sold for 9 figures. Number 5, where does your person hang out with others? With an idea of what we might sell, we can start to think about where our customers might come from. It's much easier to make sales when you can drop your product in front of a group of your ideal people. Does your target customer listen to specific podcasts? Do they follow certain influencers? Do they belong to specific groups? Do they read certain blogs? Brainstorm where your ideal customer focuses his or her attention, and you will quickly know where to put your product in front of them. In the next chapters, you will also learn how to develop a micro audience that is ready to buy your product from you. I also like to write down the names of 10 friends who will get excited about a product because your ideal customers know other people just like them. Number 6, do you know how you will get predictable sales? I don't mean to overwhelm you just yet, but your sales process has to be scalable. For most people, Amazon is the easiest place to start. We'll cover that later. Unless you have a different way to collect sales consistently, then Amazon will be your starting place. Number 7, what will products 2, 3, and 4 be? Do you know what your follow-up products are going to be? If you don't know what else you might sell to your person, then you're not ready to move on. Your job will be to roll out products for that same customer as quickly as possible, as fast as you can comfortably handle for the first year. Having an idea of your subsequent products will put you far ahead in the process. When Matt and I started Sheer Strength, we went through the same process and asked ourselves the same questions that I'm asking you. We knew our group because we were our group, and we knew that people in our group bought protein powder, creatine, and pre- and post-workout products. We bought workout bands, BCAAs, drinks, gym memberships, and workout clothes. We identified our gateway product and brainstormed the rest of the list. Other companies were successfully selling similar products, and most people probably would have avoided that market because of the competition. But those other companies had done a bunch of research and development for us. They'd already vetted the idea and shown that people were buying the products. Matt knew the names of a couple manufacturers, so we emailed them and ordered samples for our gateway product, an endurance supplement. The samples were all fine, but they were boring and mostly the same. This was our chance to add a unique spin. We wanted to add in one ingredient, beetroot extract. We'd done some research and found out that it was particularly helpful for endurance. When we tried it, it made a massive difference for us, and nobody else was putting it into their formulas yet. Today, beetroot is a common ingredient in similar products, probably because we pioneered it. However, we knew that we didn't just want to be an endurance supplement company. Since we were developing the products that we wanted, we made a long list of other products we would eventually want to sell. If the first product took off, we'd know exactly what we could sell next. Our first product sold okay, but it was nothing special out of the gate. It took months to get to about 25 sales per day, and that's when we rolled out the next line of products. Remember, it only takes 3 to 5 products that each sells about 25 sales per day. That's $1 million business. Having ideas circling around in your brain right now is a really good sign you're ready to move forward. If you're not there yet, it would be a good idea to answer the list of foundational questions. But anyone can sit and kick around ideas all day. That's the easy part. The hard part is deciding to take the risk of actually bringing that product to life. The hardest part is getting past the head noise. What will my family think? What if my product sucks? What if I get a negative review? While I will help you with the how-to, you have to go all in on getting through the mental hurdles. It's time to make a decision. Are you willing to go all in? Entrepreneur Spotlight. Jared Springer. When Jared Springer stumbled across my training for entrepreneurs, he was at a low spot in his life. Recently born with clubbed feet, his son had terrible medical issues, which put Jared in a lot of debt. Then, to compound things, Jared started developing his own medical problems. One day, he was rushed to the emergency room, unable to walk. Apparently, a large nerve running down his leg was completely pinched off. Doctors told him, "You either have emergency surgery or you never walk again." At the time, Jared, who was 30 years old and married with 2 small kids, worked in management and sales. Suddenly, he found himself in a walker with a long road to recovery ahead of him. This was when Jared came across my videos. Having plenty of time on his hands, he watched every single piece of content I put out. Then he did all of the action steps. Jared was fired up to launch a business. There was one major problem. He didn't have the money to start a company. He was still in recovery, in debt, and unable to work. He had to hustle and grind his way to success. He started flipping random products to get enough money to invest in his business. Once he had a little bit of capital, he developed his first product. In the end, his first product was a failure. Instead of giving up though, Jared went back to the basics and began building a Facebook following. He focused on the person and he got them to follow his page, which ultimately swelled to 60,000 followers, adding some of them to an email list as well. That's when he started testing out different products. Just before Christmas, he found a little robotic dog bank in which you put a quarter in the dog's mouth and it chomps down on it. Right away, he knew, I can sell that. He knew his person so well that he knew that this off-the-wall product would be successful. Prior to this, his business had been struggling, operating in the red. But when he talked about his product on Facebook, it caught on and things started to take off. Orders began coming in quickly. So quickly that his orders exceeded his inventory and he had to start taking pre-orders. He wired $40,000 to a supplier in China for additional product. Up until recently, that had been a year's income for him. As I tell people over and over again, when you follow the process, your biggest problem won't be lack of sales, but possibly too many sales. Then, the unimaginable happened. His inventory order got tied up in customs for 2 weeks. He originally had plenty of time until Christmas. He'd even paid for the shipping to be expedited via air freight, but now none of his orders would be fulfilled in time. He threw a Hail Mary, called the manager at FedEx Customs, and told her that if it wasn't on a truck the next day, he would be bankrupt. Incredibly, this worked. She got the shipment on a truck that night. Even so, Jared was running out of time. If he didn't get people their orders, he would have to refund their money. But he had spent all of the money on advertising and ordering the product. There was no money for refunds. It was a week before Christmas, and he had 5,000 orders to ship out. Each item had to be quickly boxed and shipped to reach its destination on time. Since there was no time to send them to a fulfillment warehouse, he had to do it himself. So Jared had thousands of units shipped to his house in the middle of winter in Wisconsin. He stayed awake for days printing labels and organizing shipments. The FedEx truck backed up to his house and dropped the pallets in the middle of the driveway just as a snowstorm was about to hit. Jared and 15 friends frantically packaged and labeled them in just 6 hours, right up until the moment they were picked up to ship to their destinations. It was Jared's mindset, his willingness to grind in the early days of his company, that kept him going. Failure was not an option. In the end, Jared made a couple $100,000 in a few short months that Christmas. It was the first product to launch the Happy Puppin brand into profitability. 1 year later, the brand had brought in $1 million in revenue. Now, Happy Puppin is a 7-figure operation that's currently about to be sold for a big payday. Most people think you need tens of thousands of dollars to get started, but you can get there with just 1,000 or less, Jared told me. The money isn't the obstacle. The truth is that 90% of the battle is getting your head right and just pushing through all the obstacles no matter what. You have to make it your mission to find a way. Jared's obstacles didn't end that sleepless Christmas. To this day, competitors copy his ads and even his products. Some of them are total scam artists who take orders with no intention of fulfilling them. When I first started, I'd get so angry at the scammers, but that wasn't helping me, he said. Now if I see someone copying my stuff, I immediately get my lawyers involved and send a cease and desist. It's part of the game. I've learned to just deal with it. To Jared, being an entrepreneur is an up and down emotional roller coaster. You have to get your mindset right, he said. You'll have really big wins, you'll be doing awesome, and then something turns on a dime and knocks you back down. You have to train your mind to make those peaks less dramatic so you can flow through it. This was Jared's biggest struggle. For a while, he was either on top of the world or it felt like everything was falling down around him. Once he built up the mental fortitude to realize that there will always be ups and downs, it all got easier. The moment Jared really knew he'd made it was when he bought a brand new truck, a Ram Rebel with 33-inch tires, and took his family on a month-long vacation. At that moment, I felt like it all became real, Jared said. All the hard work and grind had given me the kind of freedom I'd always wanted. I remember thinking, this actually works. Chapter 4. Step 2. Develop your first product. When Moiz Ali, founder of Native Deodorant, started his business, he put in a grand total of $500. 2 years later, he sold the company to Procter & Gamble for $100 million. That's a pretty good return on investment, I'd say. We bootstrapped the whole thing, Moiz said from the stage of one of our conferences. We launched on Product Hunt, and the most entrepreneurial of entrepreneurs go on this site and upvote it and downvote it on a daily basis. On day 1, we'd sold 1 bar and were at the very bottom of the list on Product Hunt. Forget it, I said. I'm shutting this business down. Then a friend of his said that he had an in at Product Hunt and that he could get Native near the top. By the next day, they'd sold 50 bars and were at the top of the list. Once we had those first 50 orders, we bought our first 100 units, said Moiz. We sold the first 50 bars without even having any inventory. If you bought on a Tuesday, your product was made within 1 day of the order. We had 0 inventory laying around, and it allowed us to stay really lean. Moiz didn't use Amazon, retail, or Kickstarter. He sent all traffic to one place, the company website. and encouraged visitors to subscribe to its email list in exchange for a $2 discount. People usually subscribed, which increased Native's conversion rate. Moise said, "When we tested this, we kept the test going a good 6 weeks past the planned duration, even though we already had hard data that it definitely worked, that people subscribed, and that subscribers were more likely to become customers. The reason was I was certain in my heart of hearts that it shouldn't be so. But that's the thing. When it comes to marketing, I have no idea. Despite spending all the money we've spent on ads and all the success we've had with creative, I still don't know what's going to work. I'm not the customer. That's why we test everything." While Native was based in San Francisco, it didn't raise capital like everyone in Silicon Valley. Instead, it tested its products like tech companies test software, according to Moise. He said, "Early on, when we launched in 2015, we realized we had a pretty mediocre repurchase rate, 20%. Our reviews were coming in at an average of 4 stars. We started simply asking customers why they didn't buy it again. You were willing to spend $12 on this deodorant, why didn't you buy it again?" The answer Moise found was resoundingly application. Customers didn't like how the deodorant applied. It was too flaky. They spent the entire first year of the business working to solve that problem. They were also focused on staining. Moise would A/B test products by rubbing them on all his shirts, throwing them in the wash, and seeing what happened. With all the testing the company did, it was ready to launch a reformulated product in a year. The new formulation was infinitely superior to the original. Reviews went from 4 stars to 4.7 stars, and repeat purchases doubled. It's easy to fall prey to shiny object syndrome and lose your priorities, according to Moise. He says, "One of our investors told us that we needed to launch into other categories and that no one was going to buy a single category business. But I felt that things were going so well that I didn't want to lose my focus on it. If I branch into another business category, what are the chances I'd be able to do it as well as this business is going?" Our sales channels were also questioned. We were approached by Target, Whole Foods, Costco, Sephora, Ulta. The number of brick and mortar stores that approached us was 100 pages long. We decided to stay laser focused on what we were good at, selling on our website, because what we were doing was working. We doubled down on what was working instead of getting bogged down by the typical dogma of other startups in Silicon Valley. We didn't do any influencer marketing for years, he continues. People told us we were crazy. You don't have to listen to all the noise out there. Whatever your team is doing well that's generating revenue, double down on it. Stay focused on what you're doing well and ignore everything else." End quote. When it's time to go to market, Moise knew he'd grown an immensely profitable business, but to a point. He felt confident that he could build from nothing into an 8-figure business, but he didn't feel confident he could build a $100 million business. He wasn't sure he had the skill set to take the business to the next level, of playing with the big boys. The initial acquisition conversation was actually not with Procter & Gamble, its eventual buyers. It was with another business who came knocking on Moise's door and wanted to talk partnering, which always means buying. Valuation conversations started happening, and Moise quickly realized that he needed to run a real process and do it right. He made a list of 100 companies he might want to sell Native deodorant to. He crossed out all the companies he didn't like and ended up with a list of 16 people to go talk to. And just like that, I talked to those 16 people, he told me. We'd give our presentation and show off our business. We ended up just really falling in love with the folks at Procter & Gamble. Procter & Gamble loved them back, so much so that they bought the company for a cool $100 million. You always start small, but when you focus on what works, you get incredible results. How to make your first product. When I was 6, my aunt had a boyfriend named Don. Don was the first rich person I ever met. To this day, I don't know how Don made his money. I just remember the one time he blew my mind. We were sitting on my parents' front porch, and he was giving me my first business lesson. I had asked him to teach me about being successful. Yes, at 6 years old. When you're a real entrepreneur, you're born with the itch. Don's first lesson to me was on product creation. To this day, I remember it clearly. "Ryan, did you know that there are companies out there that can make any idea you have come to life?" "What do you mean?" I asked. "Well, What's something that you and your friends are interested in right now? Yo-yos, I said. At recess, all my friends bring their yo-yos out and compare tricks. What's one of the tricks called? He asked. Walk the dog. He told me, well, if you wanted to come up with a yo-yo that would bark when you do walk the dog, you could call one of these companies and they could make that happen and send it to you. I could barely believe it. Companies could do that? Imagine how impressed my friends would be if I showed up next recess with a barking yo-yo. I now know that Don was talking about contract manufacturers, companies that make your product for you and sell it to you at wholesale. However, much to my great childhood remorse, Don didn't actually know how to find these companies. 20 years later, I discovered that Don was right. Other people will bring your ideas to life, and if you like it, you can order it in a small or large quantity. It really can be that easy to take a gateway idea and make it a gateway product. Thankfully, today you don't need to know someone to have a product made, as contract manufacturers compete for your business online. You'll find a ton of contract manufacturers if you search for them on Google, but the biggest marketplace in the world is Alibaba.com, where you can shop contract manufacturers and find the product you want to create. Don's lesson was top of mind when I started my second brand with my buddy Sean. Sean and I were good partners because we filled gaps in each other's game. I was in charge of decisions and marketing, and Sean was in charge of research and operations. When we were trying to identify our target customer, he spent a ton of time putting together spreadsheets comparing all the different markets we should consider. When he showed them to me and asked me what I thought, I replied, yoga. Huh? We could easily do multiple products serving people who do yoga, I told him. It's an emerging trend, and I know a ton of people. I can just ask them what they want. Let's start a yoga business. Sean's initial response was, that's not a quantitative analysis, Ryan. I've never been one to overthink things. Most people spend way too much time in the research period. I make decisions fast and adjust later. With our target customer identified, we made a list of possible products and chose our gateway product, a yoga mat. With that, we began the process of product development. We looked up the top-selling yoga mats on Amazon and read through the reviews. He asked questions on Facebook groups, subreddits, and Instagram influencer accounts. It didn't take long before we had an idea of the main pain points we needed to address within our first product. I remembered Don's advice and began looking for people to make the product. With a quick scroll and a click, we could choose between a wholesaler in China, a private label supplier out of India, or a contract manufacturer in Vietnam. For about $50, we were able to order a set of yoga mat samples that had the exact features we were looking for. It was that easy. Samples in hand, we needed to refine our product idea to make sure we were really hitting the pain points we'd identified. At that time, I'd done yoga maybe 2 or 3 times in my life, and I wasn't nearly the right demographic for our mats anyway. That forced me to ask questions. We were targeting yoga-loving millennials, so I went to where they often congregate, Starbucks. There, I did the kind of tough field work that really makes an entrepreneur sweat, asking young women questions over coffee. Which yoga mat do you prefer? Why? What makes the difference between a bad yoga mat and a good one? What's wrong with your current yoga mat? What do you think of this one? And what about this one? Next, I headed over to local yoga studios to see how our samples stacked up against the strenuous demands of a yoga class. A few classes later, and Sean and I had everything we needed to narrow down on our product development. Armed with all our data, we went back to the manufacturers. From a couple of yoga clueless guys, we'd become knowledgeable enough to know not just what a good yoga mat looked like, but how it had to feel and perform. We knew what we needed our yoga mat to do. Now we just had to find the manufacturer to supply it. It didn't take long to find some willing partners. We set down the specifications, and Sean talked to all the manufacturers who said they could fulfill our requests. We narrowed it down to 2 quality options, and then we chose the one with the best price and the best communication. Sean ordered the prototype, had it embossed with our brand logo, Zen Active, and in no time at all, we unrolled our first yoga mat on the floor in Sean's house. That was our yoga mat. It was our product, with our specifications, with our logo, in Sean's house, ready for sale. And all it took was one website, and a lot of groundwork asking questions. Now, I'm not saying we got the product totally right on our first try. We made some mistakes, and we made adjustments to improve the product over time. But the basics of taking an idea and making it a ready-for-market product is really this simple. All you have to do is find the suppliers, do the research, make the tweaks, and find the best offer out there. Find your supplier. I've come to trust and rely on suppliers from Alibaba.com, but I know it has its detractors. When it comes to user experience, the site is, frankly, a bit of a mess. There's also a certain distance between you and the supplier that the more firm handshake-loving, look them in the eye while you're negotiating types don't like. These days, though, Alibaba has a lot of competition, so there are plenty of options out there if you want to find a different path to your product. You can search for wholesalers, manufacturing companies, or contract manufacturers for your chosen product and find any number of smaller companies you can contact personally to get that more direct experience. Or if you're feeling old-fashioned, you can attend a trade show in the market you're going into. Find out where the next one is, hop on a plane, and go speak to a room full of potential manufacturers in a new city. Some people even go as far as to fly over to China to meet directly with manufacturers. I've never done that, and I never plan to do that, but plenty of my friends swear by that. Of these options, though, I'd still recommend starting on Alibaba or a similar site and ordering ready-made product samples. Something magical happens when you hold a product in your hand. You realize it's real. While it may seem at the outset like the best way to make your product perfect is to go meet a contract manufacturer in person and get them to build your design from scratch, that option comes with a lot more risk. The risk of lost time. We're talking about at least 3 months before you see your first prototype. More likely 6 or even 12. All of that, and you won't even know right away if the resulting prototype will be the one that will make your brand. That's why I recommend you come up with the idea, get samples, and improve over time. Perfectionists hate this approach, but you can't expect to make it to $1 million in 12 months if it takes 12 months just to get a look at what you're creating. Refine it, don't overthink it. A lot of entrepreneurs think that success in business requires you to reinvent the wheel and that you have to reinvent it perfectly the first time. If you don't have a wheel that you can do something new from the moment you debut it, no one's ever going to bother buying it, right? It's got to be new and it's got to be perfect, and until you've got that down, best keep it to yourself. That may have been true at some point in the past, but it certainly isn't now. The wheel hasn't been reinvented in ages, and yet wheel manufacturers and wheel dealers are doing just fine. In fact, new wheel competitors still pop up every now and again. What are they selling? The same damn wheels, just tweaked. The key to your product probably won't be that it's new. It'll be that it's different, even if it's just in one small way. Here's what I mean. I was once the keynote speaker at a conference where an attendee came up to me and told me she was marketing yoga classes to baby boomers. After a little while, she mentioned that her clients' group's biggest challenge was knee pain when they got on the yoga mat. The majority of yoga mats are manufactured and marketed toward young people. You can turn that information into a great product in 2 ways. You can either design a new, extra thick yoga mat made out of a new material that no one has ever thought to try before, or you can take an extra thick yoga mat that already exists and focus on speaking to a new customer, boomers who do yoga. Don't waste time trying to come up with a new wheel. Simply give your person what they already want. Once you have some samples in hand, focus on refining, not revolutionizing. I know the temptation is to pursue perfection, but perfect doesn't sell. That's not to say that quality and uniqueness don't sell. They do. But sales force you to improve the quality of the product. As Peter Diamandis says, if you are not embarrassed by the first iteration of your product, then you aren't moving fast enough. Instead of trying to think yourself to success, focus on getting more feedback on your samples so that you can refine what isn't working and really target those who will be receptive to your product. In this work, you've got to focus on the big decisions first and worry about everything else later. Address a pain point with your product. Reach out to those who have that problem and then get their feedback, preferably in the form of sales. The longer you search for the ideal product or the ideal branding, the longer your product lives in fairy dust land rather than in a reality where it can secure you that financial freedom. I've known far too many people who get hung up on designing packaging when they should be getting their product ready to sell. They work and rework a logo, change out the color of their plastic wrapping, consider 100 different fonts for their brand name. Honestly, if you're selling a product on Amazon, most people won't even notice your packaging. For the customer, the packaging is a brown Amazon box on the doorstep. If the product speaks to them, they'll get it regardless of the plastic you wrap it in. I don't want to give you the impression that design features aren't important at all. The branding, the logo, the overall design, that's all going to be important in expanding your reach, but you can change that later. The only things you can't change later are the things that prevent you from taking a sale in the first place. Your job right now is to eliminate all those things as quickly as possible. Concentrate on getting the research done so you can get the product right, go to market, and start taking sales. If the packaging isn't up to your dreamed up standards, come back to it after you're moving inventory and money is flowing into your bank account. Refining your product is a never-ending process. When we first started selling yoga mats, my attention was solely on moving those first products. Shortly after we'd gone up on Amazon though, we found a more affordable manufacturer whose mats were thicker, higher quality, and $1 less per unit. A better deal for a better product was out there, but I didn't put our momentum on hold to look for it. We made the adjustment as we progressed. That never-ending, purpose-driven quest for improvement gives you the freedom to direct your focus right now on getting that product on the market. Whenever I catch myself overthinking a product and delaying the crucial move from concept to sale, I remind myself, let's make some mistakes. After all, there's so little risk involved in this method. When you're working with small orders up front, the downside of a mistake is very low. You'll find a way to sell those first 100 units on Amazon eventually. Even if you don't, the loss is minimal. Mistakes, even bad ones, are part of this business. No amount of preparation ensures a perfect process. Sometimes you'll make a modest mistake, like going to market with the second best supplier cutting slightly into your margins. Other times you'll commit a nastier error, like the time we lowered our price on our yoga mats without really thinking through our inventory limitations. At that point, we were still in the small order phase, hedging our bets with a limited supply of yoga mats. Up to that point, we'd kept the price high, which was great. Profit margins were solid. We were attracting the right people. We had a steady but not overwhelming number of sales. Then we decided we wanted to chase a higher Amazon ranking. A better ranking would mean more eyes on the product and more purchases. It seemed a nice shortcut to upgrading to larger orders and bigger profits. To do that though, we needed to boost sales. So we slashed the price, handing out a better bargain to the customer. A lot of beginner entrepreneurs, and a fair number of experienced ones too, are afraid of higher prices. They want to cut prices as soon as financially possible, probably because some intro to business class told them that's the best way to build a brand. I can tell you from experience though, that if you're building a brand, you do not want to get into the business of cutting prices. You want to be near the top price point in your market. The reason is simple. It's much easier to scale a premium brand than it is to scale a low price brand. Only companies selling inventory in massive quantities can really win at the low price game. You're not going to beat Walmart's price, so don't play Walmart's game. When we cut our price, we sold really well, because when you follow the method in this book, it works. But then we ran out of stock. It was a predictable outcome. Being out of stock is the worst thing that can possibly happen to your new business, because you're essentially out of business when you can't take orders. We had to wait out a 4-week lag for another shipment to cross an ocean and get to the Amazon warehouse. When we finally got the new stock back in, we were essentially starting over. Yes, we had customer reviews, but our momentum was dead. We had to run another discount to get moving again. We did recover, but that one mistake set us back months. I can't say whether an extra month of planning would have kept us from making that awful choice. Probably not, honestly. You can't control for everything. Your goal is just to take your product from an idea to a physical item in a customer's hand. It's simpler than most people think it is. Find the right supplier, get samples, refine with research, put in a small order, and get the product online. That's all you need to worry about right now. Don't overthink it. Just fix the mistakes as they come. One of my mastermind members, Travis Killian, once told me about how he gets products to stand out in a busy, loud marketplace. His answer was simple. We listen to people. We execute so many tests, it's insane. We'll mock up the product and ask people, which do you like better? This one or this one from our competitor? We do that for all the top competitors in the market, all the ones we think have the best products in the niche. Split testing requires nothing more than asking people which one of the two things they like better. That's it. Show someone two items and ask for his or her preference. It's one of those rare things that happens to be simple, easy, and effective. I remember one time we were just starting out, Travis told me. We paid one of our friends to go to the mall in Austin, show pictures of our products versus our competitors' products, and collect survey answers on which one they preferred. If it sounds like a ton of time and money to pay someone to do in-person surveys and split testing, Travis says that's not even essential. When we started out, that's what we did, he said. Now we use services online to run constant split tests of our products against our competitors' products. The most important thing is to get the feedback on why survey respondents have a preference. Why do they like the other guy's product over mine? That's the data we really want to collect. We spend our time analyzing that data and applying it to the products, deciding first if the feedback is something we can and want to address, and then making changes from there, end quote. All of this happens before the product is released to the market. Say you use a French press to make coffee, said Travis. There are tons of French press designs out there. Some are full stainless steel, some mostly glass, some are more sleek, curved designs, some are more industrial. What we do to develop and split test a French press is collect all the product designs we think are best and then split test them against the top sellers in the category. Based on the split test, we'll decide on which design to go with. Getting customer feedback is a direct result of getting sales, according to Travis. When you launch a product, you do whatever you can to get as many sales as you can early on, because that's what drives feedback. That's what allows you to listen to your customer. When we started out, we went from, in 4 months, doing 4,000 to 5,000 in sales a month, to 2 years in, doing about 2 million in sales per month. Those sales are the fuel that runs the feedback machine and allows new products to be developed. Moving beyond small time. It's normal to feel nervous or downright terrified to place an inventory order, especially when you don't know if the product is going to sell. You can mitigate that fear by listening closely to your person and also using the stack the deck strategies I'll outline in later chapters. However, it's okay to start small. You might only order 100 units of a product when you start. That's what I did. However, once you start to see sales, all of your attention is going to go into keeping enough product. That will require you to place larger inventory orders. Getting to the point where you're financed enough to make that transition can be tricky. In other words, managing the money side of this can be a challenge for first-time entrepreneurs. It's counterintuitive, but your goal at the beginning isn't to maximize profit. Your goal at this stage of the process is to establish the systems of getting product and selling that product. You can optimize for profit later. A student of mine was selling a fish oil supplement, and he kept trying to find a way around the upgrade cost by switching suppliers. He was constantly looking to improve his supply chain process, jumping from supplier to supplier as soon as one would offer a slightly better price. His margins did improve modestly over time, but the supply chain was not predictable. He kept running out of product, which again is the worst thing that can happen to your business. Instead of progress, he was circling around the same difficulty, making small orders, jumping from one supplier to another supplier, making another small order, and then promptly running out of stock. Margins don't mean anything when you can't guarantee that you'll have the product people want when they want to buy it. What's more, he was missing out on building the necessary momentum to grow. When he came to me for advice, I told him he had to learn to stay put with someone and make it work. The solution to his problem was to settle into a deeper relationship with a supplier. Which supplier? He asked. If all your suppliers seem about equal in price and quality, I told him, choose the one with the best communication. So he went out to New York City and met one supplier face to face, then used that strong communication to negotiate better terms. He got a 20% discount on his product, a 20% boost to his profits, and the consistency to keep the product moving without interruption. For him, making the jump to larger orders in the hundreds of units was as easy as sitting down with the right manufacturer and making a great deal. He had the supply, he had the demand, and he had the margins to make it work. Not everyone is that lucky. For the rest of us, getting product made and sold introduces a new problem: funding. To scale past small-time operations, and to make sure you always have the inventory on hand to meet increasing demand, to make it to the million, you will probably face a money problem. That problem cripples many new entrepreneurs, but if you play your hand right, it can help you grow even faster. Entrepreneur Spotlight, Hani Sunarto. Hani Sunarto, an engineer who lives in Illinois, is originally from Indonesia. Once a year, she makes the long trip to visit her family. She and her sister have always used this opportunity to go on a 2 to 3 week hiking and travel adventure. The sisters were out in the wild in 2015 when one of their backpacks broke. Frustrated, Hani's sister asked her, "You're an engineer, right? Why don't you design a better backpack?" It may have started as a joke, but the idea stuck with Hani. By the end of the trip, she had the concept for her new company, Neatpack. Hani started working on designs. Her sister, who frequently traveled to China for her fashion and textile business, looked for the right textiles and other materials for the first product. The company's target audience was minimalist travelers looking for affordable, high-quality travel bags, as opposed to other high-end leather luggage. The bags would do two things really well: organize all your travel items and never, ever break. Hani's attention to detail and her all-in mentality is what persuaded me to invest in her business once it started to take sales. However, she had to overcome her own set of challenges, just like everyone does. The sisters' first product was a toiletry bag with an adjustable compartment, a small interior unit you could move your toothpaste in without having it turn into a mess. Hani started with just a sketch of the underlying concept, an approach she was accustomed to from her work as an engineer. Her sister found a supplier who was also helpful in fleshing out the design. The sketch became a blueprint, and the sisters and supplier iterated on the design until it was right. The first product only took a couple iterations to get the product to a stage where the commitment for a minimum order of 1,000 units could be made. The concept originated in June or July 2015, and the company launched its first product in late November. By that time, Hani's husband had come aboard to help out. The response from their audience was almost immediately positive. Hani already belonged to several Facebook travel groups, so the sisters set up and launched a new travel group of their own. "My sister and I came up with this great new design for a travel toiletry bag," they said. They got a lot of, "Wow, that's pretty cool" responses, to which they followed up with, "It's going to be on Amazon in a couple weeks if you want to check it out." Members of the Facebook group started posting on social media, saying how much they loved the new toiletry bag. That's when the sisters knew they finally got their design right. When Neatpack launched its second product, Hani and her sister thought it was the greatest thing in the world, but it flopped. Customers said the material wasn't light or flexible enough, that it was hard to fold into a backpack or suitcase, and that it was too large. Although the design underwent a fair amount of tweaking, the product was eventually discontinued. This was an ego-bruising disappointment, of course. Hanny felt she knew what she was doing. After all, she's both an engineer and a traveler. She and her sister came up with all sorts of justifications for why their products were superior. Unfortunately, the market didn't agree. Hanny has seen many other entrepreneurs get similarly carried away, wasting far too much money on an unproven concept. They're so sure they've got a hit on their hands that they launch in 5 different channels right away. It's gonna work. People will love it. You only know that once you get feedback, sales, or both. Focus on proof of concept for one product sold through a single channel. Make sure it's what your audience needs and wants, and get as much feedback as you can as early as possible. How many times Hanny, her sister, and her husband would go back to the drawing board during the design phase was determined on a product-by-product basis. The company developed a mailing list from its Facebook and other travel groups and continually asked for feedback. Customers listed pros and cons and also gave the company ideas for future products. Through it all, though, they felt incredibly lucky to have an audience who gave them honest feedback and felt like a community. They knew right away if products weren't liked or had to be returned, and in a couple of cases, they made the decision to cut their losses and discontinue an item. The company's first toiletry bag was compact in size. Customers soon began asking for bigger toiletry bags that could be used for family and kids. This medium-sized toiletry bag was developed and launched in about 7 months and was the company's second major success. Subsequent successes included a sling bag, which is now one of the company's best sellers, a foldable backpack, and a crossbody bag for women. Hanny believes one of her company's major early mistakes was putting too much focus on selling through Amazon, losing the more important focus on brand building as a result. Growth stalled in 2016 because not enough attention had been paid to defining, creating, and expanding the brand's core audience. Or to put this differently, they thought too much about product and not enough about people. In 2017, to overcome this setback, Neatpack hired a marketing agency to help expand its mailing list. The resulting increased exposure and series of promotions grew the customer base from 3,000 to 10,000 and created a major boost in subsequent product launches. Leveraging the mailing list enabled the company to launch its crossbody bag profitably right off the bat. If you're thinking of starting a business, you have to remember that proof of concept is key, Hanny says. I've seen a lot of people fail because they were spinning their wheels on less critical aspects of the business. Go ahead and sell your product on Amazon, your website, or whatever your preferred channel may be, but get a proof of concept first, before a lot of money is spent unnecessarily. Is your product something the market and your audience really needs? That kind of focus is what led me to invest in Hanny a few years ago. And while I may have bought into her company, I was really buying into her. Chapter 5. Step 3. Funding your business. Plenty of companies start out with a bang. It often doesn't last long. Frequently, companies will launch with a huge push or a great viral marketing campaign that sticks them in the customer's minds. But the stickiness is only so strong. Within months or a year, that initial spike of sales and attention ends. The companies that stick around are those that can comfortably handle their own growth. Earlier, we discussed Dollar Shave Club and how it grew toward a $1 billion exit. What most people don't know about Dollar Shave Club is that it was started on a shoestring budget. Dubin sold excess razor inventory, and it was enough to develop a real customer base. And the famous "Our razors are fucking great" video cost just $5,000 to produce. Dubin said, quote, "I bootstrapped it for the first year, and then I raised a first round of $100,000 in January 2012. That seeded the growth that happened in 2012. Then the viral video hit in March of 2012, end quote. Dubin said he floated out of the meeting, excited to secure $100,000 in funding. It was a vote of confidence in his ability to be an entrepreneur. He invested the money into customer acquisition, which paved the way for the now famous viral video. The viral video brought in enough customers to create a steady drumbeat of new sales, which allowed the company to keep investing into growth. The viral sensation of that original video did wear off, but the company built a stream of creative media to keep them front and center in customers' minds. As the company grew, Dubin continued to double down on putting money into advertising to acquire new customers, rather than staying married to one way of doing things. He said, "At Dollar Shave Club, we used a combination of television, radio, display ads, and Facebook ads, and made sure that our prospective customers got a very precise number of touches on the brand in order to convert them." Still, he recommended testing small. He said, "If you're a young company, think about local media. It's a great way to get a blend of attention on a cost scale you can afford, and you'll see how different media nourish customers in different ways." There was one burning question that I had to know. I asked him, "Michael, you turned $100,000 into $1 billion. Were your investors happy with their return on investment?" I joked. "They were," he quipped. You may not raise $100,000 like Dubin. The good news is that you don't need to, especially at the start. Michael didn't raise any money until he had proven sales. Most of the entrepreneurs I know get sales first, and then they consider outside capital. Should you go looking outside your own bank account for money, being able to show off your ability to hook new customers will be your calling card for investors. By the time you finish reading, getting customers will be the easy part, and keeping up with growth will be your biggest challenge. More sales does not equal more profit. My first product order for sheer strength cost me $600. I ordered 100 units at $6 each, and we sold it at a $32 price point. The money came out of my savings, and at the time, I was so worried that it wouldn't sell, and I'd be out $600. To the Ryan of the past, I now say two things. First, who cares? Put on your big boy pants, Ryan. It's only $600. Second, this isn't the real problem. Assuming you follow this process, create a decent product, and identify your customer, your bigger problem is that you won't be able to keep inventory in stock, as we've talked about already. Trust me on this. Keeping stock so that you can keep building your sales momentum is a real challenge. With sheer strength, we kept raising the price until it hit a point where sales were just slow enough that we could keep up with ordering the next round of inventory. We took the money we made from sales and we bought another 500 units. Then, in the next round, we bought 1,000 units. We just kept rolling the money back in over and over as the company grew. It was pure bootstrapping. In retrospect, I wish we had been even more aggressive at the beginning, but we feared what would happen if we placed a big first order and the product didn't sell. For a lot of people, the biggest hurdle is not placing that preliminary order, but rather finding the money to avoid running out of stock faster than they can replace it. Some entrepreneurs raise a lot of money, giving them the flexibility to make mistakes. If you're like Michael Dubin and you raise $100,000 from a group of advisors or from your rich uncle, then my hat goes off to you. Having money allows you to make mistakes, lose money, and optimize over time. It also allows you to optimize for sales instead of profits. Most entrepreneurs don't have that luxury, so they are always walking a fine line between funding the growth and optimizing their personal profits. That's why, at the beginning, you might have to use price as a way to control the speed of sales. If your product is selling too fast, you might have to scramble to fund your next order. If cash flow becomes a problem, then it's an indicator your price point may be too low. You may need to increase your price until sales move at a manageable level, allowing you to easily restock your product before it sells out. I get a lot of pushback against raising prices. But my customer sells for less than me already, people say. But you are not your competitor. If you are doing exactly the same thing as your competitor, then you deserve to go out of business. Focus on your customer, not your competitor. One of my mentors, Kevin Nations, has his own rule of pricing that I like. Find out what the customer wants, find out what solving the problem is worth to them, and charge a little bit less than that. More sales are not necessarily better, especially if that means dropping your price. Most people think higher volume sales are the goal, but that's not always the case. Kia sells more cars than Cadillac, but the profit margins are higher on the latter. I've seen a lot of people play the volume game and end up getting caught dropping their prices to the point where they can barely turn a profit. That quickly results in a race to the bottom.